Now, looking at the topographical map again, about 4.5 miles north of what may be Mount Sinai, there's a grave site indicated here. On a aerial view, this is fenced in. It's about the size of 21 football fields. It's huge. 28 acres of disturbed area. And this is a satellite imagery analysis that I did where it showed areas that have been disturbed by humans. All these red arrows show disturbed areas.
And disturbed means that people were moving or digging or doing
native
something?
rocks have been moved or things have been buried that altered the surface cover, either vegetation and or the type of gravel or sand that's in the position now. You can see these color differences. Then there's a concentration here that's about 100 meters in diameter that has a tremendous amount of man-made rock placement, structures that resemble graves. This is the type of fence that's around that area. This is a view showing some standing stones and a lot of man-made rock formations, just as you would expect for an ancient graveyard.
Yeah, it looks like a cemetery.
And here's a standing stone here that I believe is 4 or 5 feet tall.
I think they call these masaba, right?
Here's some more of the disturbed rock areas. You see things here that may look like there had been perhaps grave formations. And the point being that this is a huge cemetery that may be a Bronze Age cemetery. We don't know. To my knowledge, it's not been excavated and there's been no evidence extracted from this area.
And Bronze Age, meaning from the time of the Exodus?
Before the Exodus even, but the Exodus was in the Bronze Age. And so by saying Bronze Age, I'm saying just a general range of history. And to date this is not possible without finding something that's datable that would be buried here.
And when I talked to Yuri Zarnes about this, he said the challenge now is that possibly with Ron Wyatt and others that have gone into these areas, it sort of caused everyone to be nervous about all this. And it's made it more difficult. If they could have just went in there and started to dig and do a report, it would have been easier.
Yes, I think that there were probably some ill feelings created. But the point here is, why is this here? Why is this 21 football field sized area? Why is it there? Because from an archaeological and historical standpoint, there have never been large populations living in this area of Jabal al-Lawz. The other evidences are very scanty compared to other regions. There's very limited evidence of a large population. So why would you need a large cemetery if you haven't had large populations through the years? Well, if the Exodus occurred in this area, and specifically the golden calf worship at the base of the mountain occurred, that could explain it, because after the calf worship, the Levites were ordered to kill the violators, and it said that about 3,000 died. And then after that, the Bible says that the Lord plagued the people because of their idolatry, and that idea of plaguing the people with illness maybe meant that more people died yet. The idea is that if you have to bury 3,000 people all of a sudden, that you may have a mass graveyard. And that mass graveyard would not be located where the encampment was. It would be outside of the encampment area. And this graveyard, or the cemetery, is about 4.5 miles up the wadi from the base of Jebel Makla. That is one explanation for an apparently large cemetery, large graveyard, perhaps many graves occurring or being made simultaneously in a very sparsely populated region.
So from all your research, what you've seen of this area, it's not as if there's ever been like a large city here.
Right.
That we know of. I mean, if you think about, it's a difficult area to be in. Maybe earlier it had more vegetation and more, rain, but it's not as if there was a known city, right?
Right. And the prevalence of other types of artifacts related to habitation and civilization are in the area, but they're not heavy. There's no archaeological evidence of heavy concentrations of habitations through the ages in this area. If this was a mass grave, it still doesn't mean that later peoples could not have buried 1 or 2 or 5 people here and there in the same area, knowing that it was already a graveyard. So they may not be all from the same age. But the idea of this immense disturbed area, and to try to explain it in context of a very sparsely populated area, I believe that this cemetery, if it is a cemetery and a mass cemetery, is one of the key clues as to the location of the Exodus being nearby and the people that were killed from the idol worship.
Because there's no reason for that many people to be potentially buried there, because there just isn't a population.
Right, you can't explain it. Other than that event of the Exodus with 3,000 people being killed and buried at one time, there's no other easy explanation for this huge area. Tim, another interesting aspect of the Jabal Makla area is what I'll call the hydrology, the drainage, the stream flow.
Because there has to be water. If the Israelites are going to stay at this location, even if the climate was different, they still have to have water.
Yes, and there's a reference to a stream coming out of the mountain in the Bible, and then there's the reference to Moses strewing the ground up golden calf on water and forcing the people to drink it. In my mind, that's referencing some standing water, not necessarily flowing water. So we have the lesser peak of Makla here. This is the ravine, which is actually a stream bed, and it flows to the east. It's connected with outflow from Jebel Haifa on the south, and these stream beds coalesce at the base of Jabal Makla. They eventually join and flow into Wadi al-Abiyad. In this image, we're looking from north to south. The peak of the mountain is to the right. The stream comes down from Jabal Makla here. It's joined by the stream from Jebel Haifa here. The streams join, and this is a hollowed out area. As you can see, there's an embankment here. It's carved out, and then there's a relatively small outflow area in this part here. If this area had been dammed up at some point in antiquity, and if there was enough water, rainfall, etc., snowmelt, then a pond would form in here, and it would be a fairly good-sized pond, as deep as maybe 12 feet in the middle. Along this area is evidence of some dry wells, I'll call them. Now, what the Bedouin do to get water is they'll go to the lowest part of a wadi, of a stream bed, and they'll dig a little hole. And when they get to a certain depth, sometimes it's a foot, sometimes it's 2 feet, it'll gradually fill up with water. The seepage in the sand and gravels coming down from the wadi, from the heights, will fill this hole up with seepage, and they'll drink that water. It's called a tamila in Arabic. And if you want to make a bigger tamila, you make a bigger hole. And if you want to bring cattle to drink from that, you protect that tamila by lining it with rocks so that the cattle don't cave in on your seep hole. And what we may have here are about 17, 18 foot in diameter tamila, dry wells or seep holes that have been constructed. If in antiquity water had ponded in this area, it raised the water level in this region. If you went to the bank and dug your seep holes, you could harvest the water from this ponding area, and if you protected them with stones, you could bring cattle to water there, or many people could come and draw water without caving in the sides and muddying the water.
I mean, if there's 3 of these big dry wells here, was there evidence that there were others there?
Ron Wyatt surmised that there were a number of other dry wells, but his fellow traveler, David Fazel, did document 3, which we're looking at right here. And conceivably, there could have been more, but they've eroded away. You can't exclude the possibility of others.
I mean, if you think about it, 17-foot wide areas for watering, that's significant for a very isolated area and multiple wells.
Yes, it seems out of scale, and I think it's a very good hint that maybe we're looking at something unusual happening in this place.